For the nuclear rods that can be reprocessed and sold, we have the stopes up in the UP. These are the hollowed out iron and copper mines. We should be big energy exporter. It's one of the 9 industries that I've identified as Michigan's comparative advantages to the other states, if we want to exploit them. Jobs don't grow on trees. My question is, so why not find it, dig it, drill it, pump it, store it, refine it, sell it, transport it, whatever, and keep the jobs here. Jobs that come with it. You know, let me extrapolate that. Whether it's the Bakken fields up in North Dakota, Montana, we're talking oil shale and everything else that goes with it, whether it's the Marcellus Range in New York State and Pennsylvania, the Haynesville down in Louisiana, Anwar up in Alaska, Barnett in Texas. The nation, folks, has an unlimited amount of oil, gas at these prices, and that's not even to bring in nuclear. Anyway, here are my 10 conclusions and advice. I think the greatest fallacy we have is that we have time to trim around the edges. We don't. I mentioned the case of Alabama. That's one of many states, many entities, including those around the world, the Chinas, the Indias, that want to get where we were in the United States, in Michigan, 80 years ago, and they know how to get it because they know what a market system is and what works and doesn't work. So what do? We must now play leapfrog with incentives. We have to make sure our business climate is a magnet. What does that imply? Well, it implies incentivizing all factors of production: land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, venture capital. It implies incenting all regions geographically, no pick and choose, no political favoritism, incenting all age groups, all cohorts, incenting all income groups. You don't play the politics of envy. In short, incentives, they have to be ethical, they should be legitimate, obviously durable, predictable, ubiquitous. They have to be market-driven. They can't be politically contrived so as to politically favor one group against another. That's unethical. So we know that. As libertarians, we know that. We know markets work, socialism fails. And finally, here's the basis, and this is the only way you get the message across, I have found. You have to be optimistic, and I have reasons for optimism, and therefore confidence. I'm optimistic because educational research think tanks like the Mackinac Center, one of many in the United States, what do? We catalog very realistically and practical proposals for reform, for saving in government, to improve government operations. We have very well documented success stories, not only from around the United States but from around the world. They're peer-reviewed. They've been in existence for many decades for anyone to look at. They're in print. They're online. You can get them through free consultations, and they're always available to the policymakers. I'll give you 2 examples of what we've done and what I'm very proud of. One is the privatization, the other is what I call parity. In Michigan, I was on a school board for 5.5 years. We know that there's a lot of stress in the public school systems. We have 551, this doesn't count the intermediate school systems, the public school systems in the state of Michigan. Well, there are 4 non-academic services across each district. That includes your custodial, your transportation, your cafeterial, and your health care, among others, probably some others, but those are the big ones. All you need to do is start competitively bidding, what I call privatization in that respect, and you find you bring these things in at sometimes 20 to 30, sometimes more % below. The unions can keep the jobs, but they have to competitively bid these. I come from at this point, a district, Holly. It's a mid-sized district, about 5,000 students. because of the exigencies of the budget, they had to competitively bid. They don't do it voluntarily, but times get tough and you have to do things like that. So they did that with the food services. $1 million annually. $1 million, one district. You do that across the district, you saved more than $500 million. You do it with all four conservatively across the state, all the districts, and you've got well over $2 billion annually and a better product. That takes care of most of your deficit. But then I go to the other aspect of what the Mackinac Center's just published, and that's, what if you go to parity and reduce some of these outrageous, egregious costs, public servant and political benefits, health care and pensions, to be specific, and you bring those into alignment with what the private sector is doing. What is that? $5.7 billion annually, just to bring it into alignment with something you can afford for the next generation. Well, so conservatively, you're somewhere between $6 and $7 billion annually. That's enough not only to take care of your deficits, but afford the removal, either cold turkey or gradually, unequivocally, of your income taxes. So that's how you leapfrog, and those are the practicalities of where there's a will, there's a way. And the will is going to come because the economy, as I mentioned earlier, isn't going to get any better if you stay on the same course. I'm optimistic also because tax cuts are bipartisan. I don't know how many people even recognize that these days because there's no collective memory. But they're known to work with cornucopic effect as revenue generators for the public trough, for the stressed treasury coffers. Historically, just in the last 100 years, whether it was the Harding administration, the Kennedy administration, the W. Bush or the Reagan administrations, each time you reduce the marginal tax rates on capital and incomes, you just got cornucopic size revenue responses. And so that's what you want. That's what would help make a healthier public and private sector. I'm optimistic also. I call it STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Well, those are the building blocks, folks, from which our premier universities can attract and retain, leverage human capital for new industries. It's that STEM that Michigan still has, whether it's the private or the public universities. We still have that infrastructure, and while we have it, we better make sure that it's used and that it has a firm support base behind it. I'm optimistic because global trade now promises unlimited export-import potential. I don't know whether you realize it, but at approximately $7,500 per capita income, of course the U.S. is way beyond that, but these developing countries, once they reach that threshold in per capita personal income, you have the demand for U.S. exports, Michigan exports, beyond belief, because you have, with China, India, Indonesia, and the likes, a potential middle class now that dwarfs anything we've ever seen in history, somewhere between 2 and 3 billion new customers. It's a new world, and it's waiting for us if we're willing to tap it. I'm optimistic because nations like France, for 4 decades, have had the bulk of their electric power, 80%, generated by safe, clean, reliable, cost-effective nuclear power. Today, as I said, 80% of their electricity is nuclear, closely followed by Sweden, lots of other countries. China soon, they're just creating nuclear plants with the extant technology that is top of the line in terms of safety. Today, even plutonium, which was the bugaboo for many of the so-called self-anointed environmentalists, it's easily, efficiently, and profitably recycled, reprocessed, and sold.